Hi, this is Mark Linsenmayer here talking with Debra Rowe about low-cost energy production. Debra, tell us about your organizational affiliations.
Sure. So I've been a professor of renewable energy technology, that's like solar and wind energy and biomass, and also energy efficiency and energy management for 35 years at Oakland Community College. And we've been teaching people about how to put in these clean energy sources and how to move to a more sustainable energy future. I also run a national nonprofit. I'm president of the U.S. Partnership for Education for Sustainable Development. We have 400 partner organizations, and we have active sector teams in higher education and K-12. We also share resources on how to create sustainable communities, more sustainable businesses, and help to empower youth to shine a light on those in both formal and informal power to say, look, we need a sustainable economy. Let's move towards that faster than we are now. So that's some of my affiliations, and I'm glad to be here today.
Thanks. Uh, so a key component of the new work picture of the future is this community production, right? So we're supposed to be able to some extent, unhook ourselves from the corporate mass that we presently feed all of our money into, and therefore have to work, full-time, long-hour jobs to support. By providing for more of our needs ourselves, we're putting more of our labor time into directly fulfilling our own needs rather than going to work at a job to make income and thereby buying it from a third party. How does these energy mechanisms that you're talking about work into that picture?
Well, from my perspective, a new work economy is really an essential component of what a sustainable economy is. And of course, we have to get to a sustainable economy because if we don't, the planet won't be habitable for us and for future generations. So we look at the triple bottom line of sustainability, which is how do we create healthier ecosystems so that we can continue to live on the planet, and also how do we create healthier social systems and communities, and how do we structure the economy as if people and the planet mattered. So what we're doing at the college, but also in our nonprofit work, is we're really helping people understand how they can improve their quality of life, improve their happiness and joy, while also living a more sustainable life. And of course, that includes that if you can reduce your costs and increase your ownership of your energy sources, of your food sources, then and of your housing, then that really does limit your need to have these jobs that have long hours. And perhaps you can then live, particularly in community with others, with a job that better meets your personal needs, your emotional needs, your spiritual needs, your family needs, your community needs. You have more choices that way. So I used to own a solar energy company, and I walked into Oakland Community College 35 years ago, and I said, I want to give this stuff away. There's a lot of do-it-yourselfers in this town, and they should know how they can build their own solar hot water heaters, solar space heaters, they can reduce their bills, but also it's more than that now. It's the bigger picture of how do we work on policy so that it's easier for all of us to be able to live a more sustainable lifestyle and have a more sustainable economy, which of course includes the components of the new work.
Right. Yeah. One of the difficulties we have in communicating about new work is that the solutions vary, of course, depending on your current situation. So, for instance, if you're already in a well-to-do economic state, and you might just, even be interested in adding a solar grid to your house just for purely environmental, not for any cost reduction matters. Having that technology at our disposal is one thing that's great. It's a very different challenge, of course, when you've got a whole community that, one of their problems might be that they just can't pay their power bills. And so you're trying to introduce a system like this on a community level in order to provide that section of Detroit or wherever it is you're working with power that they might otherwise not even have. Can you address those two? So those are the sort of two extremes, and I think that there are plenty of folks that are in the middle that they if I right now could figure out a way with my neighbors or whatever to invest a certain amount, and this will allow me to lower my fuel costs over time, then I would definitely jump at that. So, I mean, which of those do you want to address first, I guess?
So I think I'll address first community solar. So if you want to own your own solar energy system, but you don't want to own it just yourself, you want to share the installation costs, the maintenance costs with your community, which makes a lot of sense from a new work and a sustainable economy perspective, you're going to have to get involved in energy policy in the state. Because right now, our utility companies are not okay with that, basically, unless you're a co-op or a municipal utility that have been looking at it. The large utilities want to have the control. And so it's a core issue of who owns this key resource of energy production. And so right now, over the next couple of years, the governor's going to come out with his new goals for renewable energies. And so calling the governor's office and saying, we want the ability to do community solar throughout the state would be a really worthwhile thing to do. And then also getting involved maybe with the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association, where they've been looking at community solar and understanding what it takes in terms of permitting and regulations so that it gets streamlined so that communities can do it would be really valuable. Going to some meetings at the Public Service Commission where they have rate cases with the utility companies, talking to your state legislators. We have a new project we've been doing called Course and Campus and Community Conversations, where we have people from different parts of the political spectrum get together and learn how to speak to each other with civil discourse and explore together energy efficiency and renewable energies, because we found that regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, the benefits of energy efficiency and renewable energy shine through. And then we include a draft letter that you can send to your governor, your state legislators, and also the person responsible for writing the Clean Power Plan. So one more piece on policy, and then I'll move to another level, which is you may know that the president has finally, we've been waiting for decades for somebody to regulate the greenhouse gases coming out of power plants. And these are very dangerous and very urgent, because if we have more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere now than any time in the last 1 million years, 1 million years. And so we are at risk right now for climate change tipping points. We've got to reduce these emissions, these greenhouse gas pollutants coming out of our power plants. So finally, the EPA's regulations are coming out. This will only make a difference if our state completes a clean power plan. And that clean power plan should include energy efficiency and renewable energies. So you'll see the link that's attached to this talk. Go to the link, have the conversations, or just take that draft letter and send it out and shine a light on the fact that our people in this state who are elected by us should be held accountable to create all sorts of wonderful pathways for us to start using renewable energies and energy efficiency. Now, one other piece, a lot of people can't afford that stuff up front. So we should be allowed to have an environment where companies like Solar City can come in, where they will put solar energy on your home for free, they will maintain it for free, and you just pay them for the energy that you use. That's the kind of business model that works for people in all income levels. Solar City's doing great work all over the country. So it would be really wonderful if we could have the kinds of policies that make them feel like they should come in here. On another level, people who've had their electricity cut off, those folks sometimes need a stopgap measure. So my students in class next semester are working with a group called the Appropriate Technology Collaborative, who've actually been doing renewable energies work in Guatemala and other parts of the world. But there's a wonderful product, and it doesn't cost much at all. I mean, to rich people, it costs $45. So to poor people, we're looking at reducing that price. And what it is a small solar panel, and it charges a light. So imagine if you have no electricity at your house because you've been cut off by Detroit Edison, you don't have the money to get reconnected. This will give you a light that you can carry around the house. You can use it so the kids can do their homework, so they can brush their teeth, so they can see when they're walking down the hall. But also, it allows you to charge your cell phone. which in today's civilization is a pretty essential piece. Now, that's not going to heat your home. It's not going to solve the whole thing. But in terms of spring, summer, and fall, and being able to at least have those core basic needs, it's a really low-cost way to do it while unhooking yourself, at least for that, from the utility company.
You were talking about regulatory problems in Michigan in particular. Is that comparable to the situation elsewhere?
So Michigan is not as user-friendly for installing solar energy as other places. New York and Connecticut have a green bank where people can get the financing. There are a lot of places that have better regulations, New Jersey, Illinois. I mean, if you just look at our potential for renewable energies versus what we've actually installed, we've done some, but we're not nearly where we could be. And of course, before you do renewable energies, you should be doing energy efficiency. And there's also this kind of financing where you could finance the weatherization of your home and then pay for it out of the savings. Those are the kinds of programs that we need that are going to work for people across the country.
All right. So people need to do a web search, figure out what the situation is in their particular state, their community, in terms of the legal barriers to community solar. Now, assuming that those somehow got out of the way or that they're in a state where that's already taken care of, then what are can you say something about what are the mechanics of actually setting this up? You mentioned a couple companies like Solar City that will come and do it for you. What if you don't want to do that, if you want to do it yourself? Is it just a matter of, look on the web, lots of people are doing this and you can find instructions there, or do you have any more specific guidance?
Well, a couple things. First of all, Solar City won't come into Michigan right now because we're not regulation friendly enough. So you've got to call the governor, you've got to call your state legislators and say, look, we want a more friendly state for renewable energies. You've got to do better than this and stop giving all the power to the large utilities to control it. There's a lot of legislators that are afraid that it'll screw up the grid. It's just because they don't know any better and they aren't looking to the successes that are already in other states. So anyway, I would say look at that link that says Course and Campus Conversations, look at that draft letter, send it out or call and say those things so that we can start to get the regulations that work for people. In terms of doing it yourself, I wouldn't just go to the web and do a search. The last couple of years, I've been the convener of the Detroit Green Skills Alliance. And if you go to detroitgreenmap.com, you'll see a map there of all sorts of green businesses. Not only green businesses, but there's a subset who have signed a pledge, and they've pledged that as their businesses grow, that they want to commit to hire residents from Detroit. And so some of the companies in there are companies that do solar energy, and they've been doing it for a long time. You want to look for companies that have been around for a long time. They have some stability, so they'll still be here when you need maintenance on the system. If you want to do solar electricity, then you're probably going to have to work with a company unless you're an electrician or you've had specialized training. If you want to build your own solar hot water heater or your own space heater, you can do that with low-cost materials, and it's really exciting to see how it works. So I can go ahead and describe how solar hot water heaters and solar space heaters work if you'd like.
Okay.
Okay, so imagine this, okay, and this is really low cost. If you go find an old refrigerator that somebody's throwing away, and you go find an old hot water tank that somebody's throwing away, the tank is still good, maybe it was electric and they've switched to natural gas, you can call a plumber because they oftentimes have to take those to the dump and they'll, if you say, hey, I want it instead, you can work out how to get it from them. So take that refrigerator, make sure that the Freon is out of it. And if it's not, you got to have somebody who's qualified to take the Freon out because that refrigerant can destroy the ozone layer. So you really got to be careful about that. And there's a way of recycling it with somebody who's a heating and cooling guy or an appliance repair person. But anyway, take the refrigerator. You might even want to call Detroit Edison. They've got this program now where they pick up old refrigerators. I wonder where all those go. And put it on its back so it's laying on the ground. And then take the hot water tank and with gloves on and a mask on because you're going to be dealing with fiberglass, which is little glass fibers. You don't want to get it into your skin and or into your lungs, okay? So put on a mask, put on some gloves, put on clothes that you don't care about or that you'll be able to wash after, and take off the outside of the hot water tank and then behind that is the fiberglass insulation, usually. Sometimes it's another type of insulation. You take that off, and now you have just a tank, right? It's like a silver tank. You can paint that tank flat black, high temperature paint that you can get in any hardware store. You can just, spray can it or paint it on however you want. Put that tank, take the shelves out of the refrigerator, put the tank in the refrigerator. So now the refrigerator is lying on its back on the ground, and the refrigerator is basically an insulated box. So if you wanted to, you could buy materials and create an insulated box as well. Just make sure you use high temperature insulation because this thing's going to get warm. You put the black tank inside the refrigerator. The door of the refrigerator you can either leave all the way open or you can kind of prop it part way so it acts as a reflector and puts more sunlight into where this tank is now sitting in the box. Next, go find an old storm door. Just go find a piece of glass or a piece of plastic and put it over the front of that refrigerator cavity. So now you have this black tank behind the glass, and leave it outside, that thing will heat up. So I had a student who built one of these. We have students who build solar collectors for their midterm. And he came in, it was 30 degrees outside. We put in 52-degree water at 9:15 in the morning, and at 11:30 in the morning when we went back out to check it out, at the top of the tank, it was 120 degrees. Now, you only need 105 degrees to take a shower. So there you go. There's a solar hot water heater. Now, if you want to, you can plumb it in so that the cold water that now, think of what we do right now. We put a tank in our basements or in our closets, and then we dig up fossil fuels at a rate about 95 million times faster than it takes nature to make it. So we're taking a non-renewable energy resource, which is polluting the environment, and we bring it in a pipe into our house just to make a little flame to heat up the water. That's what we do. And we were all born into the fossil fuel era, so we think it makes sense. Doesn't make sense anymore. So this thing won't do 100% of your hot water needs because you got to be careful about those pipes going out to the refrigerator and then coming back because they'll freeze in the wintertime. So you should drain this thing in the wintertime. But if you take the water that used to go in the fossil fuel tank and now you just run it into this refrigerator, batch water heater it's called, solar water heater, it'll heat up there and then bring it into your fossil fuel tank that's in the basement or wherever your hot water tank is. If it needs a boost, it gets it, and then it goes into the house. So that's simple. I can give you something even simpler. Get an old rubber inner tube. Fill it with water. It's black. Stick it out in the sun. And then attach where the hole is, where you would put in stuff. Cut a hole into it, get some good epoxy from the hardware store, and put on where a hose would be. Put the hose attached to the tire, and then on the other end, put a shower head. And you can go away for the day. The thing heats up. You come home, put like a plywood board, stand on top of it, hold up that shower head, and you've got a solar shower. I have students who do that a lot, and it works. So once you understand how the sun works and you realize that we've got 300,000 BTUs per square foot that are available year round, why in the world are we burning fossil fuels? That refrigerator unit that I just talked about can easily meet your needs in the summer and part of your needs in the spring and the fall. So, you're looking at over 50% of your hot water heating needs with something that's really low cost. Okay, you want to heat your house now? Okay, so go to the junkyard and go just find some pieces of wood or some aluminum framing that's there. Go get some of the aluminum that you get on the skirt of a trailer, right? And paint the aluminum flat black, high temperature paint. Put it in maybe a 4x8 or a 4x10, or you can cover the whole south side of your house. Anything that's not a window. By the way, a south-facing window is already a solar collector, so don't cover it up. Just close the drapes at night so you won't lose the heat back out. And you put this piece of it's a solar air collector, but you use a high temperature, you gotta use high temperature insulation. So polyisocyanurate, also called Thermax, also called Tufar. You can use styrofoam, but it depends because it depends on the outgassing. But if you have some beadboard, don't use that because if it gets wet, it loses its insulating value. Look for something, and all materials in the hardware store have a material data safety sheet, MDSD. And just look at what temperature it outgasses. As long as it doesn't outgas below 250 degrees, you're fine for an insulation. I wouldn't put fiberglass in there because you don't want to breathe in the glass fibers. Anyway. So you just put in high temperature insulation. You frame out a box. It's about 4 inches deep. So you've got insulation on the back, insulation on the sides, and then you've got this layer of thin metal that you've painted flat black high temperature paint. That's called an absorber plate. And then on the front is a piece of glass, old storm door, a piece of plastic. You can buy UV stabilized plastic called CalWall from Solar Components Corporation if you want to buy it new. And now you put it together. The sun's rays come through the plastic or glass. They hit the aluminum. Black absorbs the light and it heats up. And now you put it on your south wall of your house. Just attach it to the south wall of your house. Put a hole in the bottom and a hole in the top. And now you have a thermosiphoning air panel. From the inside, like in your living room, it just looks like heating vents. But the vent goes into the collector where the air heats up, the air from your living room that's coming in along the floor level into the collector. It heats up, it rises. Hot air rises, it comes in at the top. That's it. And I'm showing you a link that's off of our website at the college that shows you how you can build this yourself. Now, one thing that you might want to do is you don't want to have what's called reverse thermal siphoning at night, where the warm air from inside the house gets into the collector, loses its heat out the front, and then goes, has cold air that goes into the living room. You don't want that. So you can manually close it off at night if you want. I like using like a Kmart bag, a thin piece of plastic. Use a piece of double-sided tape and put it inside, just inside the bottom grill in your living room or bedroom or wherever this solar collector is going to connect into. And it'll flip up and allow air in when there's heat to be gained. But at night, it flips down and covers the grill so that you won't get reverse thermal siphoning into the house.
So these recipes, they sound all certainly doable for somebody who is a hobbyist with a bunch of time on their hands. But I think you've also given us a good picture of why doing these at a community level would perhaps be desirable, that there are not many people listening to this, I think, who feel crafty enough to go out and just look at your recipe and, okay, I'm going to go do that. At least it's not in terms of getting from point A of all my time is taken up by this job to point B, I can fulfill most of my needs in this way and sort of put it in overall fewer hours and live in a lower cost. There's we're on the cutting edge of most of these things. So it, requires quite a bunch of overhead in terms of effort to get even a piece of this into your life. But I could see having an organization that you can have some training, some mentorship. You have a community that they're helping each other create and install these things. Are there things like that already going on in Detroit? You were talking about your organization helps low-income folks with some of these things.
There's time banks in Southeast Detroit. You could look. Here's what I would do. This town used to be filled with do-it-yourselfers. A lot of people who worked on the line, and they built all sorts of things. A lot of those folks are retired now. Find them. They have some decent skills, hands-on skills, plumbing skills, carpentry skills. Ask them to help you. Make them feel a valuable part of the community. I don't know of a makerspace that's focusing on specifically this or a nonprofit that's focusing specifically on this, but anybody out there who wants to do this, we're glad to help them. That's why I came to Oakland Community College. Look, I was born on Livernois and 6 Mile, so I'm all about making this happen in Detroit. There's one other one that I want to share with you as well, and we've seen some pieces of that. But at my house, we were going to have to build a garage because there was no garage because somebody finished off the garage into a room. And I found that for 1/3 of the cost of putting in a garage, I could put in a greenhouse instead And I want you to know that right now I can go out to my greenhouse. Now today, right, we've got what, 3 inches of snow on the ground, and it's been freezing, and I can go out there and I can eat romaine lettuce and endive and Swiss chard and kale and, well, actually 3 different types of lettuce. I've still got some snap peas that I can harvest. It's been amazing to see how you can produce your own fresh food. And you just pick the products that can grow even in the wintertime. They freeze, but when they unfreeze, they're even sweeter. It adds to their sweetness. So Michigan State University, the Student Organic Farms, got all sorts of information about that. Of course, we've got great farms already in Detroit, many of whom are working on this. But the pieces that, you know how you said, like, it's a bunch of extra work while you're working full time? That may be true, but if you see this as what you do in your fun time, instead of like sitting around and watching the game or watching Netflix or, just being passive, if this is because it's really fun to do this stuff, then I say, great, you're going to be a lot quicker on your pathway to a sustainable lifestyle.
Yeah, of course, that's been one of the themes that Fritjof likes to promote, the aspect of new work, the calling, the work that you really, really want to do. But for most people, unless you're just an aspiring poet, and I just can't wait to have work less of my job so I can do more poetry, that most people are not in that category. And you'll find that even if this kind of project sounds a little strange, that once you get into this world of do-it-yourself stuff, and especially if you, as you suggested, hook up with a mentor or an organization that can help you, and of course the internet itself provides a lot of resources along those lines, then you can find that this itself can be something that, while it is fulfilling one of the other purposes, right, the community production purpose, the itself becomes a project, becomes an energizing hobby. Obviously this is your life's work, so you're really into this stuff.
Yeah, well, what I found was that it was fun. That's why I got into it. I grew up, I wasn't allowed to take shop. I was a girl. I had to go take home ec and make a curler bag, honest to goodness. And to this day, I'm frustrated that I couldn't take shop. But you know what? I reached out, I found other people who did have hands-on skills, and it was just really fun to work on these projects. You can also go visit communities that are doing a lot of work with this. There's this thing called the Directory of Intentional Communities. There are intentional communities all over this country who've been working on being self-sufficient for a long time. And taking a look at what they've done is really fun. There's co-housing communities that have been committed to renewable energies. There's eco-villages. All of this stuff. There's transition towns. Look at what transition towns have done. They're groups that are committed to getting off of fossil fuels, which we all need to do as quickly as possible if we're going to have healthy ecosystems. And the good news is that Mark Jacobson at Stanford Energy Institute and others have said, look, we can do this. But we just have to stop waiting for somebody else to do it for us, because when we do that, we lose control over our means of production. And wouldn't you like to own what produces your energy instead of being, dependent on a utility company for that? There are certain roles the utility company needs to play, but I think that we can create a lot better partnerships with them to create a more energy efficient, healthier future for us that's also healthier for the ecosystems. One other thing about this piece about jobs, I did not get hired at the college for an existing job description. I walked in and I said, you need a program in renewable energies. My mother helped start Focus Hope. She didn't go and say, I want a job at Focus Hope. She walked in and said, this was before the WIC program. So she said, there are women and children, pregnant women and children who need food and they don't have it. She went out and found people who would donate warehouses and trucks and found that government food sitting in warehouses that wasn't doing anything and set up a food program. So part of creating the new work economy is looking at the gaps in our society that aren't working and creating plans and being assertive and practicing what you're going to say before you go in and finding the leverage points for change so that you can go in and create those solutions. So here's one other piece. When I got this job that I created that didn't exist at the college, there was no maternity leave, none. So here I am, right? I want to have kids. I walked in, I said, you have to do something about this. You've got to create something here because this doesn't work for human beings. And so pushing gently, with joy, with creating relationship, not with being angry, because that's going to tend to make people defensive, but building partnerships, listening first to what they care about and connecting to their values, you can create systemic solutions. So you know how we all want more flexible job hours? That we all want to have the ability to maybe work a few less hours so that we can do some of this other stuff, maybe a lot less hours. I think that's going to happen when people keep turning to their employers and negotiate for those things and show them how it can still make sense for the company as well as for the employees. So that's another conversation, but one that I'm really excited about. Also, look into time banking if you haven't done it yet. And I'm glad to answer any other questions you have. I'll give you the website for the college as well. We've got some great videos there and other resources.
So your primary employment is through the college, but then you've got these other organizations that you've established. Are those set up as nonprofit? Or I'm just wondering if you as well, it seems like you're providing a model of living a new work life as well, that you're developing new work enterprises, that if a company is launched specifically with these kind of ideas in mind, and then you end up employing other people, then most likely as a boss, you're already in the position where you're not going to be wanting them to have horrible hours and the things that people complain. This is the kind of company that we think will survive the post new work chain. The things that actually have these employment requirements in mind.
Yeah, so let me clarify. Our national nonprofit is run mostly with pro bono efforts. We've got a lot of people who have existing jobs. Look, I mean, academics have privileged schedules, okay? They really do. And so that gives us time to work on this. The Detroit Green Skills Alliance, it's made up of over 40 green businesses and nonprofits who are all working to create, and you can see that on DetroitGreenMap.com. You can also see it on DetroitGreenSkills.org. But what we're doing is pulling together and saying, what are the shared challenges to growing the green economy? And how can we work better together on that than separately? And so those folks, yes, are committed to definitely growing a more environmentally sustainable, but also socially responsible economy. And social responsibility means an economic system as if people mattered as well as the planet. So yeah, I'm very, very excited about these models. One of our adjunct instructors is now in Madison. He's working with the Mutual Aid Network, and he's looking at all the different ways that we can help each other finance these new ways of being. Really exciting work. I just came back actually from a world conference on education for sustainable development, and it's amazing what's going on around the world. I sat next to somebody from Costa Rica, somebody else from Burundi, about what's going on all these different continents, envisioning a better economic structure. So take hope, keep envisioning, but also implement. I would say that there's a list of change agent skills that you can look at. I can give you that link too, to what it takes to be an effective change agent, so that you can work on your own personal skills to make that happen. And don't just go for one project and then if it doesn't work, you get dismayed. A cynic is just somebody who couldn't process their disappointment. So keep going for positive visions for a better society for all of us. And I would say take a multi-pronged approach. So that's a short version of something we talk about much longer in our sustainable products and processes courses, but there's a couple pieces for you.
All right. Well, we'll provide your website and other contact information. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Very inspiring.
Okay, great. Same here. Appreciate what you're doing.
All right. Folks should go to newworknewculture.org for more information about New Work. Thanks.